Welcome back to the Arabinaya Show, where we share the stories and system of blue-collar entrepreneurs and business builder who are shaping success through structures and grit. Today, I'm joined by Marianne Page, a leadership and system expert with nearly 30 years at McDonald's, where she learned what it takes to build predictable performance and consistency that earn trust. She is the author of 3 best-selling books, including Simple, Logical Repeats, and she now helps business owner create reliable operation where system runs the business and high performing team run the system. Let's dive into how she helped entrepreneur move from chaos to consistency. Once again, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Mary.
Thank you so much for having me, Ira. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah,
And interestingly, I was listening to your episode with Jeremy Shapiro,
yeah,
who was talking about systems and how he, as an entrepreneur, how he has used systems to streamline his business. Yeah, it was a
yeah.
really interesting episode. I loved it.
Wow, thank you so much for the feedback. It's been a whole lot.
No, it's so good. So good.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So Miriam, what was it like growing up for you?
Growing up, well, I was going way back to my childhood. I was one of 6 girls. My dad kept trying for a boy, but he ended up with 6 girls. And my dad was he was a business owner, not an entrepreneur. He was very much focused on his business. But unfortunately for him, it was a coal merchant business. So he delivered coal to houses, and none of his daughters wanted to take on a business that was so dirty.
Yeah.
So none of us had any real, at that time, and certainly speaking for myself, I had no real aspirations to be a business owner. And so I ended up, when I went to university, I left university, and like many people leaving university, I was sort of, okay, so I've got this qualification, but what does it mean? What can I do? What is it, what does the next step look like? And I pretty much fell into McDonald's. And if I'm honest, I saw it as as something I would do until I found a proper job. But the truth is that I was sort of sucked in by the culture, by everything that they were willing to teach me. And within 12 months, from being honestly, Arrow, I was the most naive 21-year-old you were ever likely to meet. I had no real sort of world experience. I'd had a very sheltered upbringing as the 5th of my family of 6 girls. But this very naive person, within 12 months, had been promoted to run a £1 million restaurant with a team of 50 and 2 18-year-old floor managers supporting me. So it was, I'd love to sit here and tell you and your audience that it was because I was just naturally talented. But actually, no, it was because I was good at following systems. And also they at McDonald's are very good at developing you to manage people. Between being developed as a manager of people and being taught how to follow the McDonald's way to do everything, it meant that I was able to run a £1 million restaurant. I was able to go on holiday and have these 2 18-year-olds run the restaurant when I wasn't there. So that was a real eye opener. And I was in the restaurant for a couple of years before I then became a training manager, and where I got the opportunity to learn so much more in depth about the business and how it operated. And I got to help develop other managers, franchisees. So that was a real sort of expansion of my knowledge and my growth. And then from there, I moved into other areas of the business, and eventually ended up running 4 different departments, which was great fun. But one of the things that McDonald's teaches you is to replace yourself. So to bring in people who have potential. And to be honest, I'm a big believer that everybody has potential, but to uncover that potential, to give them the skills to do their job, so to train them, but then to develop them as people. And I see training and development as 2 very different things. They're connected, obviously, but training people is about giving them the skills. Developing people is about really bringing out who they are, how they see the world, their values, and really helping them to fulfill their potential, whether that's with you or elsewhere. So really, uh, I really sort of bought into this whole culture, this whole way of doing things. But in terms of replacing yourself, so I replaced myself 4 times in McDonald's. And the first 3 times it was great. I got the opportunity to move into a bigger role with more responsibility. Unfortunately, the fourth time, I replaced myself in the business completely because there was nowhere for me to go, and I'd sort of come to the end of the road, which was fine. But both McDonald's and I agreed. It's like, you've been here nearly 30 years. Time for a new challenge. Great. So off I went and started my own business. And oh my God, Arrow, honestly, I I loved the fact that it was all on me. I loved the control. But anybody that says that starting your own business is easy is lying. And it was really, really, oh my God, it was just so different. Because I'm a naturally optimistic person. And I thought, I've got all of this experience. If I build it, they will come. But of course, they don't. You have to know how to market, and you have to look
Yeah.
after your. There's so many, you know what I'm talking about. There are
Yes.
so many
Yeah.
different parts to this. So it was a real, and the other big struggle for me, and anybody that's listening who has come out of corporate into running a business will know this. They are two really different worlds, and they have a completely different language. The priorities of a big corporate are not always the same as the priorities, in fact, often not the same as the priorities of a small business. Often with a small business, it's survival. So I had to relearn the world of work. I had to change the way I spoke about things to understand that I needed to not talk in, I don't want to offend anybody on the call, but I now refer to it as corporate bollocks, because there is so much nonsense, like big words and not saying one word when 10 will do. There's so much complication in the corporate world. And what I like to do with a small business is to keep it simple, straightforward, easy to put into really. I didn't actually think that I would be able to grow a business talking about systems, because at McDonald's, nobody actually talks about systems. It's just the McDonald's way. There's just the McDonald's way to cook French fries, to onboard a franchisee, to, train a new supplier. There's just the McDonald's way, and everybody learns the McDonald's way, and it sticks with you. There are things, and anybody that's listening that has ever worked for McDonald's, whether in their past or currently, will know that things stick with you. There are things I learned 40 years ago, Arrow, that I know I could still do today. I could still cook French fries. I could still dress a Big Mac, because it is trained in so well, and you're giving such good feedback. So and this is where I'd love to sort of almost build on what you talked about with Jeremy in his. If we can get past the language of systems, because the language of systems puts an awful lot of people off. The word
Yeah.
process is a dull word. Honestly, it shrinks a little bit of my soul every time I see it. I get that it's really good for a business, but I don't want to talk about process. I really don't.
No problem. We'll dive into that as the
Yeah.
conversation continues.
Absolutely. It's such a dull word though, isn't it? It's like you just feel, right, right, we're going to have a process for this. Really? You can just see the shutters coming down. Like your team's eyes just sort of really. So what I looked back on my time with McDonald's and this fact that we didn't talk about systems, and I thought, what if every business just focused on having our way of doing things? Whatever your business name is, the Aspen company, the Aspen way of doing things, the Marianne Page way of doing things, the Arrow Benaya way of doing things. That's your business, whatever your business name is, but it becomes our way of doing things. And the way to make it our way is for the business owner not to dictate how everything will be done, but for the business owner to get with teams in individual areas of the business, or even an individual that works in a specific area, and go, what is the most simple, logical, and repeatable way of doing this task? What's gonna be the best way? Right. Let's make that our way of doing things. Let's capture it in a how-to video, ideally, and then let's everybody else that comes to do that task, every new team member that comes to do that task, they learn our way to do it. And let's embed that with training. Let's embed that with feedback, because you will know, and certainly from what Jeremy was saying, there are so many businesses that absolutely get the idea of the benefit of systems. Systems are what make you consistent. Systems are definitely what make you scalable. Systems are brilliant for selling your business, but everybody just gets overwhelmed by the thought of doing it. And that's why we need to bring the whole team into the creation of our way of doing things, capturing that, making it part of the culture, and then making it stick. So
From what you just make reference of, owing to your experience as McDonald's, it just dawned on me that uh, business can actually more like be a skill, not just from just reading and everything. If you are around for so long, more like in a particular place where system is being done right, it's something you know, like within your heart of hearts, without even if you didn't have the perfect vocabulary for it, you know what system really is. And while you're just explaining, it just shows that particular disposition that, wow, beyond just words, you actually were like, I've seen system, I've touched it, and you know how it feels. And it's really amazing having this conversation. So your period working with McDonald's, what did they taught you about consistency?
So with McDonald's, consistency is everything in McDonald's.
Hmm.
It's consistency that has built this huge business, because people forget that it started out as a tiny business. Many people have seen the film The Founder, which showed like the beginnings of the McDonald's big business. But it started out as a tiny business. And the reason Ray Kroc, who
Yeah.
was the founder of what is now, the reason he bought into it was because he saw what the McDonald's brothers were doing, how fast it was, how focused they were on quality, and how every time he went to that counter, he got the same quality. And I talk about the Big Mac being like the symbol of consistent operational excellence. You know, because you can get a Big Mac in Nigeria, in any of your big cities in Nigeria. You can get a Big Mac in any town in England. You can get a Big Mac in America, and it's the same Big Mac. And it can be put together by some young kid who's just got a part-time job out of school. It can be put together by a mother who's working a shift between, you know, collecting and picking up her children. It can be put together by a pensioner. It doesn't matter. It's the McDonald's way of building a Big Mac, and it is so consistent. But the way they maintain consistency is through what I now call the sticky systems,
Hmm.
because everybody gets that you need to systemize your operation and having our way of doing everything as I've just described. But what very, very few business owners get is that you have to have three other systems that are really, really effective. One is a hiring system that attracts the right people with the right values to your business and doesn't settle for anybody else. Doesn't settle for people who don't share your values, doesn't settle for, you know, people who are not up to standard. So your hiring system is your first system, because with the right people around you, everything is easier. And with even one wrong person, everything is harder. Hiring system, the next system that they invest massively in is the training system. They train everybody one-to-one, and then they give them how-to guides that they can keep with them, that they can look at, that they can study. I now talk about how-to videos because videos are so accessible. You know, you can have the videos on your phone, you can have them on your iPad. You can, you know, if you were learning a new job and you were given a bunch of videos, say these are the things you're going to be learning over the next 30 days, you can actually get ahead of the game and say, oh right, oh I see how that works. Whereas with a document, it's much harder. And people talk about documenting their processes. Much, much better use of time, much quicker, much more effective is to capture them on video. So screen recordings, or if it's a practical task, actually with a mobile phone. So having that training system where you invest the time to give training one-to-one so that the person can ask questions, so that they can build their confidence in what they're doing. And then the third sticky system is feedback. Because without feedback, you don't, one, maintain the standards that you're trying to set, and two, you don't develop the person to grow, to improve, to, even if they're good, to become even better. So those three systems together usually get very, very little of a business owner's time. It's, almost every business I go into, a lot of effort is put into systemizing the operation, the nuts and bolts of how we do things, but hardly any time, hardly any money is invested in hiring well, training, and continuously training so that things improve, and giving feedback, and having a feedback system that sits everybody down at least once a quarter, gives them that time in the sun that I refer to, where, it's not just, you don't just sit down with the people who are doing a bad job, which is what usually happens. You sit down with everybody so that they understand what they're doing well and get congratulated for it and, recognized, but also how they can improve. When I think back to my time in McDonald's, that sort of feedback was, absolutely every single quarter I was sat down and I was given feedback on how I was doing. I was challenged to improve. I wasn't allowed to stay at the same standard I'd been even the previous quarter. It was like, okay, so how can you improve? How can you improve? How can you improve? And I learned to do that with the people I work with. And I want that for team members in every business. I want them to get that sort of feedback, development, helping them to grow as individuals, and then to fulfill their potential, where, whether it's with that organization that they're in currently or a future organization. So
Wow.
it's a real, those sticky systems are so important, Darrow. Honestly, I can't stress that enough to your audience.
Amazing, amazing. And thank you for actually sharing it. Our hiring system, training system, and feedback. For me, this really, especially when you're explaining it, it just speaks volume, being that once we get highly wrong, system is there's going to be a lot of mess when it comes to system. And being that if competent people who are aligning with what the company actually more like make reference of, didn't get to kind of be employed in the system, definitely they are not going to follow it. And at the end of the day, the goal is not going to be achieved. So getting it right, even the training, especially when you make reference of capturing it on videos, not just documenting, because document does not reading documentary, just reading it and going through PDF and everything does not capture emotion or does not
No,
capture a whole lot of
no.
feedback and every other stuff. Just videos alone speak volume because you are seeing yourself in that particular thing and what you can do differently. And yeah, it's really, really
Yeah.
amazing. And yeah, so
The other
true.
thing, with videos, Arrow, is that if you're creating a video of something that you're doing online, for example, you would naturally talk through why you're doing it the way you're doing it. It's really important that you tick this box, because if you don't tick this box now, what's going to happen further down the line is whatever. Whereas when you're typing up a document, you just give the steps. You don't say why it's important to do it this way. And that's crucial for training, because it's like when we're small children, the biggest word that we know is why. But why, and we grow up with that word. We naturally think, yeah, but why do we do it this way? I've got a much better way. No, we do it this way because, and then you give the explanation, and that is more natural on a video than it is when you type up a document. And the other thing with documents is they get put in a Dropbox folder or Google Drive, and they're not easily accessible. There are so many platforms, apps these days. I talk about a great app called Trainual, where you can build your training system role by role. So if I've got I don't know, say a receptionist role, I can work out all of the routine tasks that I want that receptionist to do, I can then get the receptionists together and go, right, let's look at each of these tasks. Let's work out the best way to do them that's going to become our way. Right, okay, receptionist A, you create this how-to video. B, you create these three how-to videos. And then you build them into the Trainual app. And all of them have access to it. So once you've trained them, they can go back and review those videos as often as they like. And it saves their manager time
Yeah.
because they're not going to be constantly going, oh, can you just remind me how to do that?
Yeah.
Can you just show me that again? No, I don't need to, because one, I know you've been trained, and two, I know that you've got your how-to video that you can review. So it's a game changer, honestly. It's such a game changer.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. I think it's really key, especially being that a lot of persons does not learn in the first time. But once our training system is being done, capturing the video, it's easier for the person to revisit it over and over again, and they get
Yeah.
what the essence of that particular thing is. And yeah, this is pretty really
Yeah.
amazing. So, what
Yeah.
are some of the biggest mistake you see small business owner make when they are trying to scale?
The biggest mistake is they try to do everything themselves.
Mm,
They don't either because they haven't hired well and therefore they don't trust their team, or because they're just control freaks. And honestly, I haven't met a business owner yet who is not a control freak. I think we're all control freaks at heart, but they want to control everything and they can't, because they end up like firefighting in all areas of the business. So if their team know that, so I'm your team member and you are a massive control freak, and I'm doing a task, and I sort of go, oh well, I don't really need to get this right because Arrow's going to check it anyway, and so I may as well just do a quick job because Arrow's going to check it. So you end up with a team who aren't engaged in the business at all. They don't feel any ownership because they don't own anything, because you own it. You own it all as the business owner. So that's usually the biggest mistake. But the second biggest mistake is a lack of clarity in the business. So they have roles that that sort of blend into each other. There's no clear roles and responsibilities. So you have duplication of efforts, you have, blocks in your customer journey because nobody knows whose job it is. Obviously, you have clarity in terms of, sorry, a lack of clarity in terms of what the best way to do each task is. And the other big lacking of clarity is around finances. I see that a lot where, I'll say to a business owner, so, what was your profit last year? Oh, let me, okay. Oh, I'd have to ask my accountant that. Or, what's your break even? How much money do you have to make in order just to break even? And they don't know that number. And, so I'm not talking like details of all of their
yeah.
financials, not even those big numbers. And some small business owners almost don't want to look. It's like, if I don't, they're like ostriches. They have their heads stuck in the sand and they just hope that everything's going to be okay. So clarity is a real, being really clear about your financial position, being really clear about your return on investment from every team member that you have, being really clear about roles and responsibilities and what good looks like, and sharing that with your team. I don't see that very often when I first go into a business. It's usually something that we have to work on together. And it's, this sometimes can be businesses that are, doing really well in terms of their revenues, but they could be doing better in terms of profit, but they're just inefficient because they don't understand their numbers. They don't. Do you see what I mean? So they are big mistakes in terms of a systems point of view. It's that not investing in their sticky system. It's about hanging on to people who do not fit their team. It's I see it a lot. There'll be an individual, and quite often it's a salesperson, but there'll be an individual who is just horrible to work with, like upsets the rest of the team, is miserable. People wait for them to come in on a daily basis to see whether they're going to be in a good mood or a bad mood. And the business owner will say, "Oh yeah, but on their day, they're amazing. On their day, they're really good." But it's like, but how many days? And what harm are they doing in the meantime? And without fail, when a person who is a bad fit is removed from the team, the rest of the team will step up. The
Yeah.
rest of the team feel this sense of relief that they've gone. They start to rise to the challenge. And you discover that rather than being the best team member, they were actually the worst because they were holding everybody down. I don't know whether you've seen that, Arrow, in the businesses that you've talked to or worked with. Have you found that?
Yeah, I think the point you just make reference of is really key, being that a whole lot of founders and those who lead business, yeah, that's control centric, and most times they micromanage those who are working with them, owing to trust and the fact that they won't even want them to take their own initiative, even if
Yeah,
most of those people they hire even know much about the business, but being that yeah, they are just micromanaging them, and later on the result is not
yeah,
gotten. And I think from what you just
yeah,
speak about, it's really, really key that business owner have more like yeah, a very good clarity of what business entails, so that in that very way, even if they're hiring, they could actually more like share the clarity. Everybody's carried along, not just so that they won't see themselves as the system as just occupying space, just doing what needs to be done, but the fact that
yeah,
they will see themselves as being part of the team who could actually make things change. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really amazing from what you actually make reference
yeah.
of, and
One
very
of
key.
the yeah, in terms of clarity, one of the most powerful systems that McDonald's have is their planning system. They Mikey, there is a reason that McDonald's are still relevant
Yeah,
today, that that they are still doing really well, that their share price is up in the $300 a share bracket. And it's because they have always had a really good planning system where they know they know what they want to achieve in 10 years time, that big 10-year vision. They know what they want
yeah,
to achieve. But then what they do is they come back and to look at a 3-year period, and they break their business down into key chunks of activity. Like in the corporate world, they would talk about strategic areas. I just like to call them focus areas, because in a smaller business like we have, they are more focus areas than strategic. Anyway, their buckets of activity are people, product, promotion, price, and place. And for each of those 5 areas, and for anybody listening, theirs might be, I don't know, systems and infrastructure, revenue and profit, people will always be one, product if they've got it, or service delivery, whatever it might be. Breaking down into logical chunks and then going with each one, okay, where do we want to be with each of these areas in 3 years' time? So what do we want our team to look like in 3 years' time? So
mm,
this isn't a goal. It's like a mini vision for each of these areas. What do we want it to feel like? What do we want it to look like? If we've got a physical place,
yeah,
what do we want that to look like? So at some stage, um, in the McDonald's place, they would have said, well, we want to change from red and gold to something more natural, and so they moved to green. Certainly in the UK, everything is now green and more natural looking. So what do we want these areas to look like? Okay, then they go, if we want our people, our team to look like this in 3 years' time, what do we need to have done in the next 12 months? What goals do we need to have achieved in the next 12 months that are going to take us towards that 3-year vision? And then they go, okay, so if we want to be there in 12 months, what does that mean for the next 90 days? What are we going to achieve in the next 90 days that's going to take us towards the next 12-month goals, that's going to help us to achieve that 3-year vision? And they do that every single quarter. They sit down and look at those 5 areas, and it involves everybody down to restaurant manager level. everybody has something to do, something, some little goal that's going to help achieve the bigger goal in every team member that is involved in that. And it's what's kept them. I call them the meerkats of the business world, because they are constantly head up, looking at what opportunities are coming, looking at how technology is evolving, how they can make use of that, looking at what potential dangers are coming, what crises are coming. And the best example I can get of how this uh, investment in planning paid off was when COVID hit. When COVID hit the world, nobody could prepare for that.
Yeah.
It was like it sort of just was there, wasn't it? The share price fell it dropped like a stone. It went down hundreds of dollars overnight. And within 2-3 weeks more at the most, it had come right back up to where it had been, and actually increased a little bit, because their planning team just came together and went, okay, we can plan our way out of this. We can, what can we do that we weren't doing before COVID hit, that we can still, make sure that our customers are serviced, that our franchisees are still doing well. What are the things that we need to do? And it was an incredible, just an incredible thing that they did. And it just said to me how good their planning system was, how good their ability to come together, look at these 5 focus areas and go, right, what do we need to do? Let's get it done. It was fabulous. I loved it. It was very
Wow.
inspirational for me to watch.
Wow, it's really amazing. I think the fact that you emphasize more on planning, and not just planning alone, inclusive planning, where more like the team is being carried along on
Yeah,
what is the 5 year goals of this company, what is the 2 years goal,
yeah,
what is the 10 years goal, and being
yeah.
that all those key decisions aren't just doing in isolation from the team, it's done with the team. So the team will feel part of it,
Yeah.
and they will know that, okay, this is what we could do to achieve the goal, other than the fact that it was dumped on them after the planning was being done.
Change it.
So
Oh God.
how can small business prepare their operation if they want to franchise or expand?
So for me, they have to have a blueprint for scale. You could call it a blueprint for scale. You could call it a blueprint for sale, because all of these things are the same, or a blueprint for franchising. And
Franchise.
to achieve that, to build that blueprint, you have to develop our way of doing things. It's developing our way of doing things, having one right way to do everything in the business, having it captured in a training system. And as I'm saying this, I'm conscious that there'll be people listening going, oh my God, that sounds like an enormous task. And yes, if the business owner decides to do it on their own, it is an enormous task. But if you involve all of your team in agreeing what the one right way is, capturing it in how-to videos, get the team to capture it in how-to videos, build it into a training system, then you've got something that you can go, okay, we want to franchise. This training system is effectively our operations and training manual. This training system will tell a franchisee everything that they need to know about how our operation works. And not only that, but they've got training videos that show them how the operation works. It's the same if somebody is coming in to buy your business. If you can say, to be honest, you could lose all of the team that are in place today, because actually we've got a training system. You could train a whole new team because we've got a training system that's completely built. Obviously, we don't want you to replace all of the team, but you could if you felt you needed to. So for franchising, for selling, for scaling, it's the same blueprint. It's the same. Have a great hiring system, have a great training system, have a great feedback system, and then you have your blueprint for scale. If you want to sell your business, you need to plan to sell it. It's now
Yeah,
that you need to start thinking about who in your team could be your right-hand person that is sold along with the business. Do you see what I mean?
yeah,
If you want to franchise, it's exactly the same. Plan for it so that you have a roadmap to franchise. And don't just say, oh, I want to franchise in 12 months' time, and then just carry on with your day to day. It's like you have to plan to franchise, to sell, to scale. But it's definitely possible. You just got to do it step by step. You just got to understand all of the things that need to be in place and then just start building them, start creating, because it's possible for every business to be sold. It's possible for many businesses to be franchised,
Yeah,
but
amazing.
you have to have the blueprint for it. At one point in the UK, when McDonald's were over here in the 80s, they were opening a restaurant every 7 days. Now, if you can imagine what it takes to open one restaurant, and they were opening a restaurant every 7 days, so they needed all the building side done, they needed the kitchen in place, but they also needed a team and a team of managers that could just open their doors and operate like a normal McDonald's restaurant. So, if they can do that, then, your audience listening here could do that with their small business. They could do that. It's possible.
Wow, this is really amazing. It just shows that doing those particular things is not in isolation. It's something every business owner must plan. Whether you are building to sell or building to scale, every of those particular things should evolve in the training and in the higher system and in the feedback to that actually depict this is going to be the future goal of this particular company. And yeah, it's really, really fascinating. It just shows that business owner really has a whole lot to do. Yeah. They really
But
they really
it's
need to
all
sit
if
tight.
they keep it simple, Arrow. If they keep it simple and just focus on, it's like one foot in front of another. Don't try to run before you can walk. Just one foot in front of another. It's so doable, but just keep it simple.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Miriam.
No, my
Okay, now,
absolute pleasure, Arrow.
so tell us about your book. You wrote a book, and tell us about your book and what benefits, what takeaway can our audience gain from it once they actually get your book.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few books now, but the most relevant one for the audience, based on our conversation, is Simple, Logical, Repeatable, and that book focuses on the planning system. So there's a lot in there about the planning system, but there's also a lot in there about training, about feedback, really about building those foundations for scale and franchise that we've just been talking about. So Simple, Logical, Repeatable is a really good book for that, and also it's on Audible. There's an audiobook um that I read myself, so if they can cope with my voice for for a few hours.
Yeah,
um,
amazing.
then the other one that I would recommend for anybody that has a new is trying to train a manager or is a manager themselves and wants to become better at it. I have a book called
Mission to
which
manage.
is Mission to Manage, which talks about, and again, that's on audiobook as well, but it talks about the 7 areas that you need to master in order to be a good people manager. And it's things like communication, delegation, giving feedback, managing your own time in order to be able to manage your team well. So it's for anybody that is struggling with people management or who thinks that it's impossible, then Mission to Manage is a good book for them to take on board.
So how can my audience learn more about you? How can they do business with you? And what is the best platform to do this?
Best to go through my website, which is very simple. It's mariannepage.com. But also, if they want to sort of learn more about what I speak about and enjoy some free resources, then YouTube is a good place to find me. Um, I've got a lot of videos on YouTube where I talk about similar sort of things to this, but go into a little more detail about the how to put things in place. So that's a good place. And obviously LinkedIn is the other really good one.
Yeah, amazing. What does sustainable success means to you in a world where so many chase quick wins?
Sustainable success. Well, I think to be sustainable, you have to have that consistency, and you have to have a good team around you, and also you have to have clarity around your finances, because too many businesses forget about their bizarrely. I know it sounds mad, but they forget about their finances, and then their cash flow kills them, or their lack of cash flow kills them. So to be sustainably successful, those 3 things need to come together: great team, trained well, clarity around your finances, and a good planning system so that you are the meerkats of your industry rather than the hamsters on the wheel who don't see opportunities and crises coming at them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really, really amazing. I think if there is one thing that just get done on me or into this conversation is the fact that every of these particular skills can be learned, and there can be something that is so personal that yeah, you know it as much as you know your name. Once one can actually more like practice with it over time. At first it might look really bit very, very big, but yeah, it just dawned on me that taking a step at a time in hiring right system. Yeah,
Yeah,
figuring out to train them with videos, and at first it might be difficult, but once you have those blueprints, over time it become easy, being that they're just following the laid down blueprint that has been done, and the
absolutely.
feedback to at first might be a bit something else if you have not done it before, but over time one
Yeah.
can actually get better at it,
Yeah.
and this is really, really pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Feedback is one of those things that people see it as criticism. That's
Yeah,
why they don't like it. Whereas if you see it as helping somebody to grow and improve,
yeah,
then it's not, people who learn to drive don't get upset at their driving instructor
yeah, so true. So
when they
true.
give you feedback. Oh, don't give me feedback. No, you want the feedback because you want to drive. So yeah, we need to start looking at feedback in a different way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you, Marian. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience from global system to small business sustainability. This has been an inspiring look at how consistently build true freedom. To learn more about Marian's work, her books and program, visit mariannepage.com. And to our listener, if this episode gave you a neat perspective on running your business with system that stick, follow the Arab and Aya show and share it with another entrepreneurs who's ready to grow with clarity. Until next time, keep building, keep improving, and stay consistent. Once again, it's really, really a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
It's been great, Aro. It's been lovely to meet you as well.